What's up, everyone? I'm back. Fanatics View Hockey Show. Let's get into it. My name is James Lynch. We're going to talk all things Edmonton Oilers here today. Avery's going to join me here briefly. Avery McDougall, who we've had on the show a number of times. Of course, the Oilers losing last night to the Buffalo Sabres, 4-3 in overtime. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about everything that's going on in the league right now. There's a lot of news going on, a lot of trade chatter around Quinn Hughes and the Vancouver Canucks. We'll get into some of that as well. I've seen a lot of trade proposals and all this different stuff too. So it's interesting times here in Vancouver where I live right now because I saw a report this morning that there might be some regime change here. Of course, it's been a couple of years now that Jim Rutherford and Patrick Allvin have been at the helm for the Vancouver Canucks. The Canucks at the time I'm doing this, I believe they are 32nd overall, which is not what anyone really thought was going to happen this year. I think people thought, okay, maybe you're not going to make the playoffs, but to be at the very bottom of the league, that is not good. Let me actually look here. Yes, if you look right now, in the overall standings, if you go to nhl.com/standings, right at the very bottom, 30 games played is the Vancouver Canucks with 25 points, minus 23 goal differential. They have not been getting good goaltending. Although saying that, Thatcher Demko going to be coming back tomorrow night when the Canucks play the Sabres. But joining us once again on the program, I got the score up here. It's a good timing to have him on. One of our favorites here. You know him over from the Hockey News. It's Avry McDougall. Lewis McDougall, I should say, joining us here. Avery, how are you?
I'm good, James. How are you doing, buddy? How are things?
I'm doing great. Always appreciate you making some time for us here. There's been a lot of talk with the Canadian teams going on, but the Edmonton Oilers, the title of this video was Have the Oilers Turn Things Around? And of course, they go and lose last night, but they did make it interesting, obviously getting that goal late in the third period. Let's start there, actually, before we talk about the Oilers as a whole. What did you make of their loss last night to the Buffalo Sabres, the Oilers losing at home in overtime?
For whatever reason, the Sabres have had Edmonton's number for the past couple of years. Whatever reason it is, Edmonton just either falls behind early or can't get things going. They did in the third period. They did find a way to battle back to make it a 3-3 game and send it to overtime. But when you're playing Buffalo, a team that's lost 3 games in a row, a team struggling, you cannot drop games like those when you won 2 games in a row yourself. You got to find a way to get things together to really get momentum back fully. And for Edmonton, that's a game they're going to want back for a little bit here.
Yeah, and you look at the score here, 2 goals in the second period. The Oilers do answer back, though, with 3 of their own, including one with, I think it was like 15 seconds left in the game, which I read some stat yesterday. Did you know this, Avery, that apparently this is the first time in NHL history that they've had 4 games where like they had last-minute goals or something like that all went to overtime. Pretty crazy, right?
Yeah, it was a crazy last minute of play last night. It was wild. I saw that stat.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Stuff going on in the league right now, along with the standings as well. But let's take a step back here and look at the Oilers. I think the last time I had you on, the Oilers were struggling. We're like, this is what happens every year. There's usually a little stretch where the Oilers don't play too well. Looking at the overall standings right now, they have played a bit better as of late. Obviously got a point last night there, but I'm looking just overall in the league, 19th overall. And then if you look in the conference, they are currently sitting in which spot here? The 7th spot. So they would be in the playoffs right now. But, let's start first with the struggles, because there was a point when it was like, are they going to win a game here? What's going on? Like, what did you think was the biggest issue? A lot of people point to the goaltending, but I think the defense has been a bit of a letdown this year too.
Yeah, the defending and the goaltending have been the 2 biggest things in which Edmonton has had difficulties with. Look at defending. The play of guys like Brett Kulak, who was normally very stable, just fell off a cliff. We see Matisse Ekholm struggle as well, too, in the back end. Of course, Darnell Nurse hasn't been what this team has needed him to be for a little bit. You see flashes with Darnell here and there, but it hasn't been consistent this season. And again, the goaltending with Cal Pickard and Stuart Skinner, again, these 2 have had trouble trying to get a save percentage over 900, which this team needs in a major way. And credit to Skinner has had a few better starts, but the big thing has been consistency from him and Cal Pickard. It just isn't there again. Of course, we can always say, like we did beforehand, it's October, they'll figure it out. It's November, December, and they're still very Jekyll and Hyde. It isn't a good thing going into the new year.
Yeah, I would agree. Does this feel different than years past? Like, this seems like more of an issue than it was years before. Of course, the times when they had the long losing streak. I remember a couple seasons ago they fired their coach. Obviously they brought in a new coach there in Knobloch, and they ended up going on a crazy run, and it all worked out, right? Because they ended up going to the finals and all was good. But do you get the sense this year's different? I mean, they have turned things around. Like I said, if you look at the points, and let's be honest here, it's been a weird season, right? Like with the condensed schedule, and if you look at the West and the East, the standings are all all over the place. But is there more a sense of worry this year, or is it one of those things like, oh, they'll turn the tide, it's all good, they'll still make the playoffs?
I think to an extent, for some, there's a little bit of worry that is sinking in. Of course, not in the organization, but I think from the fan base, you're seeing that level of this feels a little bit different. This doesn't feel like we have it this year as an organization, if you ask a lot of fans around Edmonton. But I do think that this team will find a way to get into the playoffs. It's a matter of how deep will they go. That's a big thing. Getting in is not going to be an issue in my mind. It's, will this team win a round, 2 rounds, 3 rounds? Can it get back to a third straight cup final? And it's tough for any team. We see in Eastern Conference, Florida, they're struggling right now. It's tough for any team to get back to a cup final that many years in a row and what goes into it. Having the shorter off season, getting your body back to playing that quickly again. It's tough. And for Edmonton, consistency right now. I mean, in years past, we saw more often if the McDavid and Draisaitl struggled, you would see Edmonton's bottom 6 chip in the past couple of years, see what a timely goal here and there. The bottom 6 has regressed, which isn't a good thing for Edmonton as well, too.
Yeah, how much are they missing those role guys? Like a Corey Perry, like an Evander Kane. Like I know at the time when they left, Arvidsson's another one that left too. I forgot. At the time it didn't seem like a big deal, but you just it does seem like, especially in that losing streak, and obviously like I mentioned now they've kind of turned it around a bit. It seems like they are relying very heavily on McDavid and Draisaitl, which you always can because they're 2 of the best in the league. But how much are those role players being missed a little bit too?
I think to an extent they would be missed. Maybe not Kane, but I do think Corey Perry is someone whose team is missing a bit too. I'll say as much though. You're seeing Matt Savoy step up. He's someone who is, when he's played top 6 minutes, he's benefited. He's finding ways to generate chances, get shots on. Those are the guys who, in my mind, have to stay in Edmonton's top 6. But Sleep Colson as well too is someone who has worked his way into that role with Draisaitl. So you're seeing flashes here and there of secondary scoring. But if it's not going to be consistent, that's going to be an issue for Chris Knoblauch and company for a team that, again, is still trying to answer questions that should have been answered 3 to 4 years ago as an organization as a whole.
And as a Canucks guy over here, did Evander Kane really take that many penalties when he was in Edmonton? Because it seems like it happens every game for the Canucks, and he's already wore his welcome. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah, that was the thing with Evander, is that he would take penalties at the wrong times when you wouldn't need it, but it was nowhere near as much as we're seeing now in Vancouver, because I look at my social media and every Canucks fan's like, oh, can we trade him already? Can we get out of his contract? I've not seen one Canucks fan happy he's in BC right now playing for the home team.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were rooting for him too because of the fact that he had that history with playing for the Giants, the Vancouver Giants, and coming home and last year on his contract he's going to play really well because he's got to get re-signed, but it just looks like it hasn't worked out. I mean, we can talk about the dumpster fire that is the Canucks a little bit later here, but getting back to the Oilers, was there ever a point like during that stretch too that you felt, was there any talk of like a coaching change? Because I know that's what happened obviously with Hancock when he got fired a couple of years back. I didn't really think that was the issue. I think it was more of just the players not stepping up, but was there any chatter back then about a coaching change at all?
It sounds like with Chris Knoblauch, I mean, it's tough to really say to a guy, hey, we're going to move on from someone who took the team to a cup final 2 years in a row. It's a hard discussion to have. Have they been having it? It doesn't appear so. I mean, if this team can't get things going later on in the season, if this team misses the playoffs, maybe there might be some slight talk, but right now, Chris Knoblauch has a lot of rope in this organization. He has a lot of rope right now with what he's done. So realistically, I'm not seeing a coaching change unless this year or next year also to completely fall off a cliff. Because right now, in terms of the coaching candidates, if this team did go drastic and they want to let go of Chris, to me, the only real option for me personally would be trying to maybe go and get a Bruce Boudreau or try to get it a Pierre DeBoer. I mean, I'm someone who I like to give coaches a first shot. I'm someone who goes radical with my coaches. So if this team did move on from Chris Knoblauch, which again, to me is, I would say, under 1% right now, I would go to Denver University and say, hey, David Carl, what do you want?
Yeah, I agree. And I think DeBoer, I mean, I don't know if DeBoer, I know there was some talk about him going to the Kings, but you just look at the way things ended in Dallas, him kind of blaming the players. And I'm like, I can understand some teams that might need some structure, need some, and he's a winning coach too. I'll get all that. But I also wonder, maybe teams want to avoid that a little bit, on a scale of like Mike Babcock to Bruce Boudreau. I think, DeBoer's somewhere in the middle there, I think, as far as, dealing with players. But do they miss Paul Coffey at all? That was a change too in the offseason that I didn't think much of, but you see some of the struggles with the defense. Do you think that's been an issue?
I do think to an extent, yeah, it's like, yeah, Coffee is someone who was a calming presence for some of the players. He gave guidance to a lot of these guys. But the big thing that came out, you probably saw, James, was that he clashed with the coaching staff at Edmonton. He clashed with the bench, with Chris Dunn, and the assistants. And I think that probably goes into the fact that Paul Coffey came down from the front office. He was essentially Daryl Cates' right-hand man. And I could see why the coaches, I guess, to an extent, didn't really trust him or didn't really like him, because I see the coaches thinking that, oh, you're here to spy. You're here to watch over us, even though you're on the bench here.
Talking about kind of, the players not stepping up and all that, there hasn't been any moves. And I know it's been very difficult, as we saw in the offseason as well. A lot of teams, have cap space, but maybe they want to, make like a, ready now trade. The one name we keep hearing, and there's local ties here in Vancouver, is Tristan Jarry. Obviously, Jarry's parents actually live in the same town where I live here right now, which is pretty interesting. But obviously, there's that history there with him playing for the Oil Kings. Has there been any sort of follow-up to that as far as him trade? Because we heard some rumblings. There was, I think, a podcast that said, oh, the deal's almost done, and then it hasn't happened. Do you think that's something that's a realistic possibility, Jarry going to the Oilers?
I do. That podcast, I think, jumped the gun by quite a bit. So there's no deal yet. There's nothing close. I do believe there has been some discussion between Edmonton and Pittsburgh. It's just a matter of making the money work and what assets go back in each direction. So I do think, yes, there was some discussion between these two teams. I could be a possibility still. I do think that Edmonton sees him as a guy who could be in a tandem with Stuart Skinner, with Cal Pickard going down to Bakersfield. But when it comes to this being done or imminent, no, that's not true.
Yeah. Well, there's also talk about maybe Jordan Binnington. St. Louis is probably going to start selling off some assets. Binnington has not had a good season. However, this is the guy that, let's be honest, we owe him a lot here as Canadians. He single-handedly helped Canada win, in the Four Nations, and he's won a Stanley Cup as well. That to me seems like a better fit than Jarry, for just the simple fact that, Binnington, if you look at the overall career, has been a lot better than Jarry. Jarry really hasn't been the same, goalie, in my opinion, since he got that new contract. Just from your personal opinion, would you rather have a Binnington, or would you be, intrigued by getting Jarry maybe at a lower price?
I think Jarry, the lower price, is a better move for this organization. And for Jordan Binnington, yeah, I'll give him credit. He did bail out this team in the final of that Four Nations faceoff. But in the NHL postseason, as of late, he has not been good for St. Louis in the postseason. He's prone to imploding since that 2019 Cup run. And he's someone where I look at this team right now, I think to myself, Binnington it's come out beforehand that on his no trade clause or on his no trade team list is Edmonton. So I would rather try and get Tristan Jarry, who knows the city well from his time in junior, would be open to move to Edmonton, than a guy you have to convince to come to Edmonton, in my mind.
Yeah, and actually, I believe Jarry lives in Edmonton in the offseason. I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure, because I know, I know his parents live here in British Columbia, but he, as far as I know, still a lot of ties to Edmonton, because again, he was playing for the Oil Kings back in the day. So kind of interesting. There's something to keep in mind. Is there any, again, we're the Oilers, it's still fairly early in the season for the most part, but has there been any talk about maybe any players that could be available in a trade, or do you see it more as they'd maybe try and work some picks or some prospects in there instead, for as far as trades go?
Mm-hmm. So in terms of trades, of course, people have tried to propose what could be a deal to move Darnell Nurse or Brett Kulak. But I think the big thing with moving Nurse is, again, the contract. How many teams want to take on a $9.25 million contract? How many teams have that cap space? So in terms of anyone getting moved, it might be more likely you see a Brett Kulak or a Cal Pickard being a piece going to somewhere along the draft pick. I could see them going to either a rebuilding team or a veteran team. So those are I think those two are the easiest pieces you can move, because Brett Kulak, when he is playing well, he's a stable D-man for any team, no matter if you're a playoff contender or a rebuilding team. So I think those are two names you might hear come up in trade talks. But Darnell Nurse, he's someone who, again, people want to see him. Not everybody, but there are the faction who want to see him moved. But again, that's a contract which, to me, right now, I think is near impossible to deal.
Yeah, unless there was some sort of salary retention, but even then, there's a lot of stuff that's sort of tough to maneuver around, even in this cap era as well. I keep having the standings up here and kind of looking at them. It's been a strange season, and we've seen a lot of parity. And you look at some of the like, again, the points here, there's not like every team is having some sort of issue other than, maybe like your Colorado. Washington has certainly moved back up. It's pretty, I didn't even realize they're first place in the East right now. And remember earlier in the year, they were struggling big time. Colorado's obviously ahead by a long shot here. Same with Dallas. As far as the teams that are struggling, do you think it's a combination of the condensed schedule, or are we seeing a changing of the guard, like your Anaheims, who's currently third in the West? You've got Chicago playing better. You've got Utah is always an interesting team, a very young team. Do you think it's a combination of that, or do you think it is a changing of the guard going on right now?
I think a mix of column A and column B, because you mentioned Utah right there. That was a team, even going back to when they're Arizona, you saw the glimpses, you saw the flashes of them starting to put things together. But the big thing was they would fall off towards the end of the season. And now we're seeing in Utah them finally being more consistent. They're battling for a wild card spot. Anaheim, that's a fun story on the ice when it comes to the players there who are putting things together in that organization right now. But I do think that the condensed schedule has a major factor, because you're seeing a lot more back-to-backs. You're seeing travel is tight right now to get to Italy, to get to the Milan Cortina game. So that's going to be a major thing that's going to hurt teams, especially the veteran teams like Edmonton, like Florida, like Toronto. Teams who have a lot of guys who are 30 plus are feeling that stretch of playing so many games in so few days right now going into February.
And I think they tie in together, because I think the veteran players, they've had a lot of wear and tear on their bodies. Some of these teams, like we mentioned, had deep runs in the playoffs last year. And I think a lot of these young guys, they haven't really had that. Like Anaheim had a short season, right? Because they didn't make the playoffs. So you got these younger guys. There's not as much wear and tear. I think they kind of go hand in hand, and that's why we're seeing a changing in the guard. And I also, credit to Anaheim and Pat Verbeek. He's done a great job insulating a lot of those younger players with veterans. You bring in Jacob Trouba, you bring in Chris Kreider. Like, I think you're seeing what can be done with a proper rebuild, and also insulating them with good veterans. And Chicago, I had some concerns. I know Chicago's sitting at 10 right now. I still would like to see some more veterans there, but Bedard seems to be bouncing back this year in a big way, and it's cool to see. Like, you and I've been watching hockey for a long time. Like, back in the day it was Crosby and Ovechkin. Now it's Celebrini and Bedard. Like, I think we're at that point now where there is that changing of the guard.
No, totally. I think it'll be. It will be fun. Hopefully soon to get a San Jose Chicago series of those two going back and forth in the postseason.
Yeah. I know we're getting pretty close to that. I know you're an Edmonton guy, but just curious your thoughts on the Flames, because same sort of frustration here in Vancouver. It does not appear like the Flames want to rebuild. I had Peter Klein on the show. Actually, I know you know Peter as well.
Yeah.
A couple. I had him on a couple weeks ago, and this reluctance to like rebuild. And look, I get it, because ownership's always worried that if you do a rebuild, fans aren't going to show up. It's much different. People bring up like, well, and it worked for Anaheim, it worked for all these other teams. Well, to be fair, like it's a different market. Right? In Canada, like, we live and breathe hockey. Anaheim's like, fifth on the newspaper when it comes to sports and all that stuff, with all the other things going on. But does it surprise you a bit that Calgary, and we'll throw Vancouver in there too, that they're not willing to commit when you have so many examples of teams that we've, especially this year, with Utah, with Chicago, with Anaheim, that are finding success this year, and these teams are still kind of stuck in that dinosaur mentality?
It's baffling to me. It shows to me you really don't have a clear direction in terms of what you want your team to be. You can't have 1 foot in, we're not going to rebuild, 1 foot in, we will, because you're going to end up in that spot where you're drafting 16, 17 outside of getting a true high-end talent. I think fans of both markets want to see some direction. If you're going to rebuild, go and rebuild. Like, fans want to see a hard reset. If you're not going to make the playoffs, you're going to win a cup anytime soon. Fans want to see a hard reset so you can evaluate things and try and go and get that talent that can be your centerpiece. Staying in that mushy middle satisfies no one, and we've seen it before with teams who do that and they don't succeed. So in Calgary and Vancouver, if you're in the organization, the smart move is to just accept the tank, try and go and get a Gavin McKenna, and see what you can do next season.
Yeah. Are you like me though? Like, I hope Gavin McKenna goes to a Canadian team. Like, I just see him in like Nashville colors or something. It's like, he's a Canadian guy. I want to see like, a lot of these, like we have Matthew Schaefer on Long Island, which has been a great story, but imagine if he was in a Canadian market, that would be so much cooler. So I'm kind of hoping either Calgary or Vancouver snags him up there. Talking about rebuilds and all that stuff too. Do you think like, I don't know if it's going to be the Olympic break or maybe even the Christmas break that's coming up here a little bit. Do you think we'll start to see some teams start selling like, I said this at the beginning of the year, like Nashville didn't do anything in the offseason. I think they're like Vancouver where they thought, oh, well, it's just an offseason, an off-season, so to speak, not off-season. But I think the writing's on the wall now. Like, these are not good teams. And I think at this point, even Vancouver put the memo out, hey, our veterans are available. But do you get the sense that we'll start to see some sellers here?
Yeah, I do think so. I know people like to see the numbers and the standings. Oh, you're only 5 or 6 points or 7 points out. It's kind of deceiving because with games in hand, that kind of lies to you to an extent. So yeah, I do think you're going to start seeing those teams become sellers. I think Nashville is going to be king among them, which kind of sucks because we saw last year Nashville was supposed to be the next great power in that Western Conference. You bring in Steven Stamkos, you try and rebuild things there in Nashville. It just hasn't worked out. So I do think you're going to see the Predators can't turn things around. Yeah, they will start moving some pieces out by the Olympic break.
Just a couple more things. I'm just curious, just from your market standpoint, what's been sort of your view on this whole Quinn Hughes thing? Because here it's DEFCON 9, the sky is falling, like things are really bad here. But I think it's almost to the point now where I think because of Hughes' demeanor and how he's sort of not been very, and it's understandable. Again, he's the captain. There's a lot of pressure. It's another year of just not winning hockey here. But what's sort of your outlook as an outsider looking into this Quinn Hughes thing and seeing how this like he's gone? I don't think there's a question about that. It's just a question of how is ownership going to handle this move? Are they even going to let him trade, or are they going to bring in a new regime here? I don't know how this is going to play out.
If you're Vancouver and you deal Quinn Hughes, you got to get back a lot of pieces because again, this is your franchise D-man, a guy who has been a dynamo on the blue line. If you get nothing back for him if you get back nothing for him, you got a clean house in my mind if you're Vancouver, because this era by the Canucks have been botched in my mind. And it could have been different. I do think there's a butterfly effect for this Vancouver team. They did find a way to beat Edmonton in 2024. We don't know what the timeline goes. Did they find a way to win that game 7 in 2024? But beyond that, this team has just botched the era of Quinn Hughes. It's a shame because he should have been that guy to lead the Canucks to the promised land. We see the numbers he puts up. We see he's a guy who's always in consideration for a Norris Trophy, for an all-star guy. So if you're Vancouver, you don't get a lot of pieces back for Quinn Hughes. That's a massive failure in my mind.
I agree. And, it's really the last 7 years. And I think it started with the Oliver Ekman-Larsson trade. If the Canucks never did that, they don't trade for Ekman-Larsson. They can draft Dylan Guenther, and they've got him on their team, right? Because that was the pick that Utah/Arizona took with the in the Oliver Ekman-Larsson deal. And then just, move after move after that, the Miller thing, everything else. It's unfortunate, but I think there's a lot of Canucks fans now that are kind of at the point where, look, like this team needs like a drastic change. Quinn Hughes leaving, yeah, it sucks. Best player in franchise history, no questions asked. But I think it's at the point where it'll almost accelerate like a partial rebuild here because you're getting rid of a franchise player, but in return, you would hope you get some good prospects and some picks as well. I think Detroit is the best option for Vancouver here because they have a lot of centers. They have a lot of, sort of ready to go prospects. Everyone talks about New Jersey, but we'll see. I know Quinn probably wants to play in New Jersey, but here's the thing. The Canucks right now have all the leverage. I think if you're the Canucks, you make this trade happen sooner rather than later because the longer this goes on, the more leverage Quinn Hughes has.
No, exactly. Of course, you're in New Jersey. Going to play with his brothers in New Jersey. You do want that, but you can't. I mean, of course, there's give and take, there's negotiations, but it's all in Vancouver right now. Vancouver has the power. They can't just accommodate Hughes in every aspect. They need to get something back for that. So you're right. Detroit would be a good move for him, but I do think New Jersey is definitely going to try and see what they can do to bring all the three brothers into the same team.
Well, I think that trade looks something like this. You got Dawson Mercier, you've got Nemec on defense, so you get another defenseman back, a couple picks, maybe another prospect or something. I think that gets it done. I've heard New Jersey fans being like, well, we're not going to part with Nemec. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, you already have Luke Hughes. Like, you have to give something up. And the funny part is, like, if you want to entertain yourself, you got some time today, go look on New Jersey Devils Twitter. They don't know how good Quinn Hughes is. Like, it's baffling. Like, people think that this is just some, first round pick. Like, we're talking about like a generational defenseman, like a guy that won the Norris Trophy, that someone, I mean, you've seen him in Edmonton. Like, the guy he's one of a kind. Like, I think that it's just funny how little I think outside markets know how good Hughes is, and that's, we experience this a lot, the Eastern bias, right? A lot of people don't see Hughes play, so that's kind of my take on it. But yeah, no, I think Vancouver, if I was GM right now, I would get the best offer possible. I would not worry about what Hughes wants. I would go for more picks than prospects. Canucks got this because of the owner, have this whole mentality of like, oh, well, we got to turn this around right away, and that just doesn't work. Like, in a lot of cases, the rebuild on the fly, as they call it, that's what Calgary's basically doing right now. But I think you get picks, and I think you sell high on whatever assets you have. Kiefer Sherwood, like, I saw some people combine Kiefer Sherwood and a Quinn Hughes trade. I would not do that. I would have it in a separate deal. Sherwood's its own thing. He's its own unique, thing, right? He can hit, he can score. He's got everything. I would, get rid of guys that have good value right now, and then start, prepping for the future and figuring it out there. That's what I would do. How would you handle the Canucks situation?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. You mentioned Kiefer Sherwood. He's someone who, he's someone who too has been linked to Edmonton, possibly in a trade. Again, he's that player you mentioned right there, physical, can be pesty, can fight, he can score. That's someone who I think Oilers fans have considered, maybe, but not for too much. So yeah, you're right. I do think you want to have two separate trades if you're going to deal Hughes and Sherwood coming up in this season here.
Before we go, something I know you do a great job of, or at least I see you promote it and talk about it a lot. The PWHL here in Vancouver, the Golden Eyes, it's been the talk of the town. I know we had the Whitecaps obviously going to the MLS final, but you just saw the crowd, the reception for the Golden Eyes in that first game at Pacific Coliseum. Obviously you got Nurse on the team as well, although I think she's injured right now. But what have you made of kind of Vancouver? And it seems like they're making all the right decisions, and it's just good to see another hockey team in Vancouver.
Absolutely. And one thing that's really cool for Golden Eyes is that they're the first team in the PW to have their own arena for them. The old Coliseum is their building. Their logo's on center ice. That arena was was made to be the Golden Eyes arena. Because again, the Giants moved out. The Giants no longer play there. So you go in, that's their building. They made it their own spot, and they get the first win in franchise history. Of course, now they're learning, hey, an expansion team isn't easy to compete, as we're seeing right now in the standings, but it is fun to see that team being embraced in the PW continue to grow and grow. And again, next year, we're going to get 4 more teams, and the league has said that our goal is right now to stay at 12 teams for next little, get to 12 teams, stay there for the next little bit, and see how things go. And of course, I've heard I keep seeing from people saying that most likely the next 2 teams, or the front runners, are probably going to be Edmonton, Denver, as the next 2 teams coming in. Not confirmed yet, but those are the rumored front runners to be the next 2 teams get to 10. And then 12 is probably going to be either there's a few cities in the mix to be the 11 and 12 teams from Pittsburgh, Chicago, Hamilton, Halifax. So it'll be cool to see who becomes those next 4 teams next year.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Avery, you're the best. I appreciate the time as always, my friend. Keep up the great work. Just let people know, as usual, anything you got coming up that we should be checking out, anything you got on the horizon, and of course your social media handles. The floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah, of course. Like always, head to thehockeynews.com to find my work on NHL at large, some PW work, Oilers content. You can find me on Twitter at Avry, Avry.
There we go. The great Avery Lewis McDougall. Thank you so much, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Of course, James.
There we go. Great chat there with Avery. And, really interesting with Edmonton. I actually tried to get him on last week, but I had a Christmas concert to go to for my kids. So that's why there was no show last week. So apologies for that, guys. I don't like missing weeks. It's just one of those things, a little busy there. As we're going to wrap things up here on the show, let's take a look at some of the action last night. We'll kind of go back to the standings a bit, have a look there. And if you guys have any questions, as always, let me know your thoughts. But let's have a look at the action from last night, do a quick recap here. And then we'll look ahead to some of the games that are going on right now. So let's start first. We had the Flyers get the win last night. By the way, if you go check out Flyers Twitter right now, they are not happy with Rick Tocchet. And this is something that we dealt with here in Vancouver, where Tocchet would limit certain players. Like Michkov is the guy right now in Philly that is not getting a ton of playing time. Fans are not happy about it. They are already over Rick Tocchet, although they're winning. So if you look at the Flyers in the Eastern Conference, they're in a playoff spot, which I think was not really expected this year. So credit to Rick Tocchet and the Flyers for getting in that spot. The Lightning continue to roll on. They have really, speaking of, as mentioned, Washington, Tampa Bay's really turned things around. Now up to 36 points on the year, currently ranked number 4 in the Eastern Conference. They just thumped the Canadians. Canadians are not getting goaltending at all. What is going on with Sam Montembeault? He is not up to par here. You see they did, just 7.69 save percentage, not good. Dobes, not good as well either. It's not looking good right now. And Montreal, if you look there in the standings, has slipped a lot. They are out of a playoff spot right now, currently just 33 points. So we'll see how that goes with Montreal. The Ducks get a big win in overtime. Again, the most exciting team in hockey right now, bar none, in my opinion. You got the Devils beating the Senators. Sens are on a bit of a skid right now. I got to get Andrew Stein back on here soon. What's going on in Ottawa? If you look there, they are on, is it 4 losses in a row? No, yeah, 1, 2, 3 losses in a row. So Don't know what's going on with Ottawa. Always have a soft spot for Ottawa. I mean, I used to live there, but also Travis Green, former Canucks coach, always wish him well there too. The Islanders getting a win in overtime over the Golden Knights. Islanders are a fun team too with, again, you look at where they're at. They're currently third in the East. No one really predicted that. They were kind of rebuilding a little bit, right? Like they traded Noah Dobson and you thought, okay, well, maybe they're going in a different direction, but Matthew Schaefer, the whole team, they look great. Really, the big takeaway there is the road record, 9-5-1. Very impressive on that end too. So the Islanders getting a big win over the Golden Knights. You got the Hurricanes beating the Jackets. Hurricanes still number 2 in the East right now after that win. The Jackets, I got to get Troy back on here soon. They are number 13 right now. We'll get Troy back on maybe next week. I want to know what's going on in Columbus because I thought they would be doing a lot better, sort of pick up where they left off. But one of the things you look there, the goal differential -12. That is not good to see. Although comparing that to other teams, Vancouver's -23, so not exactly as bad as some teams are. The Bruins getting a big win over the Blues. The Blues were winning a little bit here and there. They won like a few games, I know, last week. They beat the Canadiens, they beat the Senators, but they can't beat the Bruins. They've lost again. Similar score here, 5-2 for the Bruins, who again continue to surprise this season. Very interesting there. We have the Predators getting the win in OT over the Avalanche. Didn't expect that. Rare. Still, Avs only have 2 regulation losses in the entire season? Yeah, 7 overtime losses though. That's very high next to maybe like Vegas, who's got 9 on the year. I mentioned the Sabres and Oilers. Looking ahead to today, we got the Rangers and the Blackhawks. Blackhawks continue to try and get closer to a playoff spot. The Wings and the Flames. Flames, again, we'll see if they're able to do much. The Mammoth and the Panthers and the Kraken and the Kings. Tomorrow, lots of action on the docket. A couple Eastern Conference tilts, including the Capitals and Hurricanes. So those are something to keep in mind. The Canucks and Sabres. It's sort of the two franchises you kind of feel sorry for as far as the way things are going. And I feel really bad for the Sabres because they actually rebuilt and they're still at the bottom of the Eastern Conference right now. I think where are they at right now? Yeah, they're 28 points. They're still 3 points ahead of Vancouver though. But you feel for Sabres fans. Something's got to give there. I think a new coaching change. I think they got to move some pieces too, just to switch things up a little bit because it's not worked out there as well. Got the Oilers again. Can they beat the Wings? We'll see. The Oilers at home again, looking to improve things there. And that's pretty much it. So yeah, I think we kind of covered everything today, guys. I will be back next week. We will get another guest on here. I'll try and get, we'll see about getting Troy back on. It's been a while since we've had him on, one of our favorites here on the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Guys, if you're watching the replay of this, always leave a comment here. I'm happy to respond to any of your comments after the fact if you're watching this later. But really appreciate you guys tuning in. This was another edition of the Fanatics View Hockey Show. Appreciate you tuning in. I'll talk to you guys soon and take care. See you next week.